to News Diary. My name is Fatia Mohammed Noor. Today in studio we have, for the political diary, we have Chris Tairu, and on the entertainment scene we have Brian Aseli to just give us details on what's happening on the entertainment scene. Now, moving on to the political diary, I want to speak to our reporter, Chris Tairu, who's at INM, to give us an update on what's happening on the political scene. Good morning, Chris.
Well, very good morning to you and our dear viewers. It is a packed political weekend, even as that dust between the Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza coalition settles in the National Assembly. Remember that yesterday, Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula, really gave out that ruling in regards to who is the majority in the National Assembly, and indicated that Kenya Kwanza coalition is the majority coalition in the National Assembly, giving it leeway for the Kenya Kwanza team and its leadership to settle down in terms of the majority leader, that is the Kikuyu Member of Parliament, Kimani Ichung'wah, who will be deputized by the Kilifi North Member of Parliament, Owen Baya. And when it comes to the chief whips, the majority chief whips, we have seen that Sylvanus Osoro from South Mugirango will take that position, and then the women rep from Rastabita, Naomi Wako, will be deputizing Sylvanus Osoro when it comes to the majority chief whip. And when it comes to the side of the minority, we have Ugunja Member of Parliament, Opio Wandai, who is now settling down as the minority leader in the National Assembly, and he'll be deputized by Kathiani Member of Parliament, Robert Mbui. And when it comes to the chief whip minority, we have Suna East Member of Parliament, Junet Mohamed, and he will be deputized by nominated Member of Parliament, Sabina Chege from Murang'a County. Now, that dust having been settled, it's business now. And what we expect is that going by the ruling of the Speaker is that by next week on Tuesday, the both leadership, that's the minority side and the majority side, should at least present 7 names from each side so that they can form or start constituting at least the 2 crucial committees. That's the House Business Committee. The House Business Committee is very crucial because it's the committee that sets the agenda of the National Assembly, which bills to be prioritized, which motions should be prioritized, or which members should be given an opportunity to present their own private members' motions. And then the second committee that is expected, of course, to be constituted by next week and is crucial is the Appointments Committee. This committee is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, and is the committee that is mandated to vet the CS nominees. And yesterday we saw the Speaker of the National Assembly give out that communication from President William Ruto that he has already received the names of the 22 nominees to the position of cabinet secretaries. And so the next step is for the Appointments Committee to schedule, or after it is constituted, to schedule the interviews and who will be appearing when, because they have been given until the 27th of this month to be ready with that report. And by November the 3rd, that report should have been tabled in the National Assembly for approval at the plenary. And so what is happening this weekend, we know that members will be lobbying. Remember, from the majority side and the minority side, we have members from, that's the Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. This time round, we'll be expecting them to be lobbying from their leaders, their party leaders. Remember, all these coalitions have different political parties and they have members. And what to expect that this weekend, they will be lobbying so that they can fit in these special committees. And when it comes to the watchdog committees, we have the Park and Peak. At least we know that these 2 crucial committees will now be left to the minority side so that they can be at least keeping this government in check and balances. And we know that when it comes to the position of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, we had seen that there was some push and pull between nominated Member of Parliament, John Mbadi, who also happens to be the ODM chairman, and on the other side, we have Embakasi East Member of Parliament, Babu Owino, who insists that this is the time for the young people or the young legislators to hold these crucial positions. Remember that pick and pack some of the two crucial watchdog committees in the National Assembly. And after that ruling by the Speaker, we know that Kenya Kwanza now will be given an opportunity to chair the rest of the committees, and of course it goes by the membership. They'll have an upper hand, so when it comes to the voting in all these committees, I'm sure that they will make sure that the chairman and the deputy come from the Kenya Kwanza coalition. It was a win for Kenya Kwanza coalition, and so by next week we should be expecting that these names will be tabled at the floor of the House so that members can debate and approve these names. And coming after this weekend, we know that from next week it will be a busy time for the National Assembly. Of course, the Senate yesterday, we saw they cleared debating the president's speech, and of course for them, we also expect them to be lobbying so that when it comes to these departmental committees, we can tell who will be sitting in which committees. And when we move to the president, President William Ruto, we know that yesterday he was in Ethiopia. He held talks with the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, and we know that yesterday's function, Safaricom was launching their services there, but he had time to interact with the Prime Minister there in terms of the dialogue, bringing these countries together. We know that the president will have a long weekend in terms of the traveling. From there, we expect that tomorrow he'll be heading to Tanzania, where he has been invited by the president there, Samia Suluhu Hassan, for bilateral talks between Kenya and Tanzania. And then on Sunday, we expect him that he'll be in Uganda, where he's been invited to attend the Independence Day in Uganda. And so this is the first tour that President William Ruto is doing in East Africa since he was elected and sworn in as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. And of course, he'll be taking his time to ensure that he brings the talks and ensures that the relationship between all these countries, especially in the East African region, are strengthened and cemented. Coming at a time that we saw just the other day in Uganda, there was some foreign lapse when the son to the president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Jerome Muhonzi, was tweeting, and we saw that the president himself came out to apologize, just stating and setting the record straight that the relationship between Kenya and Uganda is still strong. And so we'll be expecting the president to have a tight schedule when it comes to shuttling diplomacy from Tanzania to Uganda on Sunday. And from there, we don't have very much because we know that the politics and the campaigns have really subsided. Now what we have is the strategy, the boardroom meetings where we know politicians are scheming on what next, and the focus, majority of the focus, of course, now will be at Parliament, because we know that even this regime will really need to be hands-on, especially when it comes to the legislative agenda. And for now, we know that Kenya Kwanza is enjoying the majority. And we'll continue keeping our viewers updated, especially on the political scene, even as we continue bringing them focused news at KTN News.
Right, Chris, thank you so much for that detailed report, of course, on what's happening on the political scene in the country. Now, I want us just to move to entertainment and talk to Brian Aseli. Brian, good morning. Of course, there's news coming from the US on marijuana. Bring us up to date with that.
Yeah, so many people are super excited about this because for so many years, there's been the criminalization of weed or ganja, and the excitement comes with Joe Biden making an exemption for some of the people who are already nabbed for the reasons that they were found in possession of marijuana, and he's pushing classification laws that are going to actually make marijuana move from that bracket where it's categorized with LSD and heroin, which are criminalized. And this is super exciting for people who use weed in the United States of America, but we know places like California, it's legal. But there's a guy by the name John Fetterman from Pennsylvania is running for Congress right now, and he's using it as his major campaign tool, just like what Jacoya did back here at home. So with changing times, it's becoming a little bit popular to move these laws to actually make sure that we get to just cut down even more on the criminalization of weed. And then on the movie scene, there is the major announcement that was made this week with the second trailer of Black Panther, where Shuri, played by Letitia Wright, is going to be the new Black Panther. And we know from the previous Black Panther, it was held by the late Chadwick Boseman, who played the role of T'Challa, or King T'Challa, our king, Wakanda forever. And it was just so exciting to learn that a woman is now picking up this role as a superhero. We know there is Wonder Woman, there is Spider Woman, there is all these other kind of connotations that come from the main man, like Superman, Superwoman, and then you'd have like Batman, Batwoman. That's how it's been going for so many years. But giving Shuri the major role is actually really exciting. And why it's interesting to have Letitia Wright play this role is, first, she's not from the US, she's from the UK originally. She is of African descent, yes. And then also another thing is that she was almost cut out of this film during COVID because she refused to take the vaccine. So people were talking about how she would have missed out on a chance to become the next Black Panther if she refused to actually take the vaccine. But there's no report that she ever took the vaccine. So I think they went ahead and took precautionary measures as they were shooting some of the scenes. The good thing is that Lupita is in this one. She plays Nakia, and we're so excited for that. Also on the movie scene, people have made a turnout on Woman King, played by Viola Davis, and it's super, super exciting to actually check out that film. I haven't watched it, but I hear very nice reviews. We've seen a good review on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes that have given it an actual push, where we have more women playing major roles in movies, and it captures the story of Africa, the Dahomey people. So if you are a lover of African fantasy, then it's better if you go check out this amazing action-packed movie called Woman King. Also, there is one film that has captured the attention of so many people. It's a series, it's on Netflix, Dama the Monster. This is the story of an actual guy who would just try to get lovers, and these lovers would actually build a story and ended up becoming victims of this man. So it's actually a serial killer story being told in full screen. And yeah, it's so exciting how people say if you go past the first episode, then you are a serial killer, because that's the excitement around that. But moving closer home, Eric Omondi has been on the scene again, and this time around he's just making a lot of noise about music. People call it noise, but I see a lot of sense in him trying to push a bill in Parliament. Of course, he's going to lobby through some of the parliamentarians to make sure that 75% of Kenyan music is played. We've seen him in a brawl with a Kenyan artist known as Masauti. They've also had a bitter exchange with Bien of Sauti Soul, and it's just going on and on and on. And he's actually asking the event organizers, why is it that you're bringing more Nigerian artists into the country and not having Kenyans to headline that? Speaking of which, Nyashinski did an amazing show in Tanzania and he shut it down. It was actually exciting to see a Kenyan artist do it alone on stage. And I don't know who's managing Nyashinski. I hear that there's a subsidiary company in South Africa that's handling his matters. And it's just exciting to see Swahili go to the rest of the nation. Speaking of which, there are albums that you need to go check out. We have an album by Sedo, the producer of Nyashinski, known as Seduction. Unajifanya by Mavo on the Beat dropped yesterday. And Only Rosa has a new album as well. And also, just checking on the music scene, Mudhaka is an artist that you need to go check out because she has amazing music coming out. For you to read her story on how she's going to cover the music scene, you can actually read Pearl's page 11, where she talks about it's time for the girl child to shine, and she just talks about the story of how she's going to take over the industry. And that's much from the entertainment scene at the moment.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that. Of course, just giving us an update on what's happening on the entertainment scene. I want us now to move on to other political stories. Now, it was a big political blow for members of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party after Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, ruled that their rivals Kenya Kwanza Coalition were indeed the majority in the House. Now, in his ruling, Speaker Wetangula indicated that Kenya Kwanza coalition had marshalled more MPs and even signed post-election coalition agreements with 4 political parties, which initially belonged to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party. Now, following the ruling, Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah now becomes the majority leader, as Chris Tairu reports.
After 3 days of waiting for a ruling on who among Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party and Kenya Kwanza Coalition have the majority membership in the National Assembly, it was time for the Speaker, Moses Wetangula, to deliver his first ruling in the 13th Parliament.
That the Kenya Kwanza Coalition is the majority party, and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party is the minority party in this House. If it were to be considered as a political party, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party has no elected member in this House today, as no member was elected under its banner.
According to Wetangula, although Azimio la Umoja had 171 MPs against Kenya Kwanza's 165 MPs just after the elections, Kenya Kwanza had managed to marshal a membership of 179 after signing post-election coalition agreements with 4 political parties.
That in my considered opinion, it will be imprudent to treat the 14 members elected to the House under the UDM, Pamoja African Alliance, Maendeleo Chap, and the Movement for Democracy and Growth, MDG, as part of a coalition that they have expressly distanced themselves from and their parties. I'm therefore persuaded that the 14 members and their parties are part of the Kenya Kwanza coalition.
The Speaker also noted that the pre-election agreement with the 26 political parties presented before the House by both the Registrar of Political Parties and Nderitu and the Azimio leadership were not admissible since some crucial details were missing.
Certification of the document and determination of its veracity and admissibility is of prime importance. You will agree with me again, honorable members, that there would be chaos in this House if I was to make rulings on the basis of unauthenticated and verifiable and inadmissible documents that affect the rights of members.
I would wish to give notice that we shall be moving, Mr. Speaker, shall be moving you to review your decision.
It is not subject to debate, it is not appealable, and it stands as it is. Members,
it was a ruling that did not go down well with members of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party, with a section threatening to grab the mace just minutes after the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, finalized his ruling. This forcing the Speaker to adjourn the sittings until Tuesday next week. This now means that Kikuyu Member of Parliament Kimani Ichung'wah will be the majority leader in the National Assembly, deputized by Kilifi North MP Owen Baya. Majority Chief Whip will be South Mugirango MP Silvana Sosoro, deputized by Marsabit Women Rep Naomi Wako. When it comes to the minority side, Ugunja MP Opio Wandai will be the minority leader, deputized by Kathiani MP Robert Mbui. Suna East MP Junet Mohamed will be the minority whip, deputized by nominated MP Sabina Chege. And with the dispute now resolved by Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula, that marks the beginning of the Legislative Assembly of the 13th Parliament in the National Assembly, with their first business being to constitute the departmental committees. The first one being the Appointments Committee that is expected to vet the 22 nominees to the Cabinet Secretary positions as nominated by President William Ruto. Chris Tairu, KTN News at Parliament Buildings in Nairobi.
Now, Sirisia MP John Waluke and his business partner Grace Wakungu will head back to prison after the High Court dismissed their appeals, saying they were properly convicted in a 297 million shillings fraud case. Now, according to High Court Judge Justice Esther Maina, the 67-year jail term for Waluke and 69-year jail term for Wakungu, or a fine of 1 billion shillings each, were not excessive. Willie Lusige reports.
The High Court has upheld the 67-year jail term imposed on Sirisia MP John Waluke over the Kenyan shillings 313 million NCPB case. At the Milimani Law Courts, Justice Esther Maina said the charges against Waluke and Grace Wahungu before trial magistrate Elizabeth Juma were proved beyond reasonable doubt.
By the judgment of the High Court.
Maina said Waluke and Wahungu will have to pay the fines or serve the sentences. Wahungu was sentenced to 69 years in prison. On his part, Waluke has been ordered to pay Kenyan shillings 1 billion fine. Waluke, who had appealed against the magistrate's court ruling that had slapped him with heavy sentences, lost the appeal before the High Court. In June 2020, he was found guilty of defrauding the National Cereals and Produce Board (NCPB) Kenyan shillings 297 million.
There are memorandums and articles of associations of those companies.
Justice Esther Maina said in her ruling on Thursday that the prosecution proved beyond any reasonable doubt that Waluke took part in the NCPB fraud. The MP, who was out on appeal, secured re-election in the August 9, 2020 election, Sirisia parliamentary polls. The lawmaker ran on Jubilee Party ticket, getting 16,461 votes against Ford Kenya candidate Nasuma Wafula's 8,811 votes. If unsatisfied with the High Court verdict, the lawmaker can challenge the ruling at the High Court of Appeal within 14 days. To walk to freedom, Waluke must pay a fine of Kenyan shillings 727,000 shillings and Wahungu must pay 707,000 over the offense. If they fail to pay the fines, and in the absence of a successful appeal, they will have to serve the lengthy jail terms. If Waluke fails to appeal against the decision, then he'll lose his parliamentary seat because he'd have been jailed for more than 6 months. The two are, however, allowed to appeal the sentence within 14 days. Will Sige, KTN News, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, former Cabinet Minister Amos Kimunya, who was last year acquitted of charges in a 60 million shillings land fraud case, is not off the hook yet. The High Court has reversed the decision of the Magistrates Court and ordered the retrial of the former MP for Kipipiriri and his 2 co-accused. And Justice Esther Maina has ruled that the prosecution established a valid case. The court has directed the 3 to appear before Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi on Tuesday next week for directions.
After serving as the lands minister under the NAC government from the year 2003 to 2006, ghosts from Athi House came back to haunt him in 2014 when Amos Kimunya found himself in the dock charged with 8 counts of abuse of office and fraud. Kimunya, former director of land adjudication Lilian Jenga, and Junge Wainaina, chairman of the board of Midlands Limited, were accused of improperly awarding 25 acres of public land in Nyandarua worth 60 million shillings to Midlands Limited, a company partly owned by Kimunya, during his tenure at Athi House. 6 years after he was charged, the High Court let him and his 2 co-accused off the hook. Magistrate Felix Combo in June 2021 acquitted the 3 of fraud charges on grounds that the prosecution had not proved its case. The Director of Public Prosecutions filed an appeal against the acquittal. Now, Kimunya will be back in court again after the High Court reversed his acquittal and that of his 2 co-accused in the 60 million shillings land fraud case. High Court Judge Justice Esther Maina ruled that the prosecution established a valid case against the 3. Kimunya, Lilian Jenga and Junge Wainaina are expected to appear before Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi on Tuesday next week for directions. As Kimunya prepares to return to familiar territory, former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu will still be facing prosecution at the Magistrates Court in a 588 million shillings corruption case, even as the High Court dropped charges against 5 of his co-accused. Waititu, his wife, the Kiambu County Chief's Roads Officer, 5 members of the County Tender Evaluation Committee, and directors of Testimony Enterprises Limited faced graft charges in the award of tenders worth 588 million shillings for the upgrading of roads in Thika, Limuru, Juja, Ruiru, and Gatundu North. 5 members of the County Tender Committee moved to the High Court to block their prosecution. They are now off the hook after the court dropped charges against them. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Right, that's all we have for you here on News Diary. I'll be back at 10 a.m. with the News Center. But for now, Business Cafe is up.